We are so fortunate to hear from Mr. Dale Murden. A fifth-generation Texan, Mr. Murden has held numerous positions within the citrus industry, including farm manager and general manager of Rio Farms, and general manager of both Precision Orchard Services and the Bob Smith Grove Care Company. For 15 years, he worked with commodity groups, universities, and the USDA, and other farmers to serve the agriculture community through research and demonstration projects. In 2014, he became president of the Texas Citrus Mutual and its subsidiaries, where he continues to passionately serve agriculture farmers and ranchers. So without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Dale Murden.
Good evening. Good evening. See, I told y'all I didn't need that microphone. So y'all bear with me tonight. We did have a technical glitch that we're going to work through, but we'll do that at the very end. Mr. Talley here was teaching me more about the Rio Grande Valley than I ever knew, and I've lived there my whole life. So appreciated that. He actually found some old archives of John Sherry, you'll see here in a minute, in his attic from the 1940s, I believe, and that was special. That was worth my 7-hour drive up here, was that right there. So appreciate y'all having me tonight. Like they said, my name's Dale Murden. Tonight's not just about fruit. It's about land, families, weather, and sticking it out when things get tough. Texas citrus has been around for over 130 years now. Every generation had its own challenges. This is really a South Texas story, though, and I'm proud to share it with you. I get a kick out of it. Y'all call this Southeast Texas? I'm 7 hours south. Anyway. The industry was built by families who planted trees, knowing they might never see their full return. Weather shaped us, hard work kept us going. Grapefruit ended up becoming what South Texas is known for, and that didn't happen by accident. Tonight's about where we came from, what we've been through, and why citrus is still there. I got into citrus right out of high school. I didn't necessarily plan on it becoming a career, but it did become my life. I've worked through freezes, drought, hurricanes, market swings, land development, and a whole lot of other uncertainty. I've seen a lot of change. This is now my 46th year in the business, and I'm only 27. I had to think about that for a while. 46 years, I'm not that old. But what keeps people in citrus isn't money, I can promise you that. It's legacy and love for what you do. A satisfaction in growing that perfect fruit or that beautiful tree. We cut a fruit open back there a while ago, and what did I do? Made you cut another one open because it wasn't perfect, wasn't it? Yeah. Citrus didn't land here by accident. South Texas has just enough warmth usually, the right soil, and access to water. Every decision growers make is shaped by this place. If you don't understand the valley, you can't really understand Texas citrus. There you go. You see that little dot down there? That's us. Right on the Rio Grande River. This is the Rio Grande River. These 3 counties are where the commercial citrus industry began and still is today. And Mr. Talley, Sherry land's right about there. And the Sherry Mansion that you and I were talking about is about right in that area. That surprises a lot of people. Just comes from one small region. Nowhere else in Texas has the right conditions to sustain a commercial industry. You can grow it, but you got freezes and things like that. That's where we've been able to kind of hang in there for 130 years. That's what makes the industry special, but it also makes it very vulnerable. Citrus didn't show up here as an industry, it showed up as an experiment. Spanish missionaries were the ones to bring citrus trees into South Texas. They planted them near missions and settlements, mostly just to see what would grow and help feed the people who lived there. Those trees did something really important, though. They survived. They handled the heat, and boy, we get hot. They made it through winters, and little by little, they proved that citrus actually liked that place. By the time you get to 1893, people weren't just planting a few trees anymore. They started to realize this wasn't a novelty. It was an opportunity. That's when citrus began the long move from curiosity to way of life in South Texas. There we go, Mr. Talley. John Sherry. The next big jump in Texas citrus history was when John Sherry came into the picture in 1912. John Sherry was a businessman from Michigan. He believed the valley could support citrus long term if you invested in water. He built canals, developed land, and encouraged families to move there. Now he's known as our father of the Texas citrus industry. Mr. Sherry didn't just believe in citrus, he sold that belief to other people. He organized what were called excursions. He'd bring investors, families, and businessmen down to the valley to train, show them the land, the groves, irrigation canals, and convince them this was a place worth investing in. That bottom photo is an excursion group from the 1916s. They weren't quick visits. He walked people through orchards, showed them flowering water flowing where there hadn't been any before, talked about what citrus could become there. Many of those people ended up buying land. Mr. Talley told me about a large investor down there on several thousand acres. And many of those people ended up buying land, planting trees, and putting down roots for life. Sherry didn't just invest his money. He built a home and mission and raised his family there. That house still stands today. To me, that says a lot. It shows he wasn't passing through. He was committed. It's also where the idea of the Citrus Fiesta pageant celebrations came from. The top center photo is Mr. Sherry in 1930 as King Citrus. Those weren't just pageants, they were marketing. They were meant to draw attention, build excitement, and put Texas citrus on the map nationally. This is a tradition we carry on today, and in 2017, I was actually honored to be crowned King Citrus of the 80th anniversary of the pageant, something we still do today. That's me. A little bit younger. Citrus didn't just grow fruit, it grew communities. When groves went in, people stayed. Families settled here permanently instead of moving on. Packing houses followed the groves, and rail lines followed the packing houses, and towns started to take shape. Citrus provided steady work, not just for growers, but for pickers, packers, truck drivers, and on local businesses. For a lot of families, citrus was the difference between scraping by and having a reliable income every year. Over time, schools, churches, and main streets grew up around this industry. Citrus became an anchor for South Texas communities. Even today, when you drive through the valley, you're often looking at towns that exist because citrus was there first. The ruby red discovery. This is one of those moments in ag where nature stepped in and changed everything. In 1929, a grower noticed something different on one of the trees, a natural mutation that produced red flesh instead of a pale yellow grapefruit. Everyone was used to that pale yellow. My grandmother loved the white grapefruit. Well, they discovered this pink one in 1929. Nobody planted it that way, it just happened. Natural mutation. That red flesh was just different. It was sweeter, better tasting, and it caught people's attention right away. When buyers and consumers saw that color, it stood out. Didn't look like any other grapefruit on the market at the time. That one discovery put Texas citrus on the national map. It gave the valley something unique, something Florida and California didn't have. From that point on, Texas wasn't just growing grapefruit, it was growing a signature red grapefruit, the first of its kind. Decades following the ruby red discovery was a high point for Texas citrus. At its peak, citrus covered well over 100,000 acres across South Texas. How many of y'all knew that there was a citrus industry in Texas? Several of you, yeah. More than most. Because usually in my travels, it's real hard to find anybody, they didn't even know we grew citrus down here, which always tickled me. You used to drive through the valley and you'd see palm tree lined roads and citrus on both sides of the roads when we were kids. Not anymore. Citrus wasn't just part of the landscape, it was the landscape. Dozens of packing houses were operating across the valley at the same time. During harvest season, those packing houses ran day and night. Trucks lined up, fruit moved out by rail and by road to markets all over the country. This was a time when citrus supported entire towns and families planned their year around the harvest. Jobs were steady and there was optimism. People planted trees, believing the future was strong and stable. Looking back, I was telling Mr. Talley, that was the golden era. Everything lined up. Land, the water, people. It was just a period that still shapes how growers think today. We're going to slow things down just a second. I think y'all probably get a kick out of some of these old pictures. I know I do when I'm doing a little history and whatnot. Just notice some of the old labels. That really helped sell Texas fruit across the country. Those labels actually mattered back then because that was, think about it, before social media, television, apps, all these things we use today for marketing, somebody's label was their brand, and if you trusted that brand, that's the one you sought after. We'll just go through these pretty quick, but you'll notice that a lot of work was done by hand back in the day. If y'all have any questions at all, please interrupt me. I love to answer questions. Sort of. I'll tell you about Texan in a minute. It went to Florida. Y'all remember Dennis the Menace? I'm so happy y'all knew him. We were talking about that earlier, shelf space. We don't have shelf space in grocery stores like we used to because there's so many other commodities competing for shelf space, so you get a little niche nowadays. Yeah, O.W. That was my first boss on the left, right out of high school. Toughest man I ever worked for. Here's some of these old labels. But that was their marketing. And so I've got hundreds of these old labels. I should do a slide presentation just on the old labels. These are just a small sample of them, but the color in some of them is just brilliant. That one was a mistake. I forgot I put it in there. That was actually Mexico. But most of these labels were from the 30s, and the colors on them, if you find the original, it's just brilliant. The lithography on them, whole nother subjects, the lithography on these things. Marketing at its best, though. These were on these old wooden lug crates that I still can find them occasionally, and I'll find one in Nebraska that I'll buy and bring it back home. Somebody had it in their barn for 60 years or something like that, and we kind of started a little bit of a museum there. Even at its peak, though, Texas citrus was never guaranteed. From the outside, things looked solid. Full packing houses, fruit stacked floor to ceiling, strong demand, but growers knew better. Citrus takes years, even decades, to reach full production. You invest time, money, and labor long before you ever see a return. The hard truth is all of that can be lost overnight. That's the part people don't always see. Farming always carries risks, but citrus carries a special kind of risk. Nature doesn't give you much warning. A single freeze, one bad night, can undo what a generation took to build. The industry learned early on that success didn't equal security. And not long after this high point, the golden era, nature tested Texas citrus in ways no one expected, and in ways that permanently changed the industry. Industry didn't face just one bad year. It faced repeated tests over generations. Major freezes hit in 1951, 1962, the year I was born actually, 1983, 1989, those were two back-to-back 100-year events that happened within 6 years. And then y'all remember February of 2021. I know y'all got cold up here. Yeah. Each one left a mark. Trees were lost, groves wiped out, and in many cases, family operations ended overnight. Those weren't just weather events, they were turning points that reshaped the entire industry. That photo struck me. He's actually a friend of mine, but back before you had apps and things, he's listening to a weather box radio. And that was before apps and forecasts. You listened to those things so closely to every weather update because usually a decision had to be made really fast. And that didn't always work to our advantage. After the big freezes, packing houses closed and some never reopened. My wife's family, just to name one, Cindy's here tonight, following the drought and freezes in the 50s, they made the decision to close up their packing shed forever. So that was a sad time in her family. We called that the Valentine's Massacre. That was devastating. 2021 reminded us all that freezes aren't history. They're still very real. I think it was 1989 was our last bad one. We had little ones, but not like that. What made that event so damaging, and y'all know it, wasn't just how cold it got, it was how long it stayed cold. Temperatures dropped fast, remained below freezing for extended hours across multiple nights. Citrus can't tolerate that. We ran irrigation systems nonstop trying to protect the trees. Water freezes, it releases some heat, and you can add a few degrees to the layer, but not at those temperatures. It just got way too cold. Plus, the other problem we had was the wind. You don't see it in these pictures, but some of the groves, it was so windy that our sprinklers would freeze past the tree. And I wished I had those pictures in there, but I don't. When growers walked back into their groves after that freeze, this is what they saw. That's actually me right there in the middle walking down mine and Cindy's own grove. Fruit was on the ground, branches stripped, young plantings lost entirely, and in some cases, entire blocks of trees were gone. We ended up taking that grove out. Here's the part people don't always realize. Even if trees that survived won't produce probably the next year. So you didn't just lose one crop, you lost at least 2 crops before you're back in the game. That's a financial impact just one year, it stretched forward. It was one of the most significant setbacks Valley Citrus has faced in decades. Texas citrus today is obviously smaller than it once was, and that's just simply the reality. Freezes didn't act alone, though. Drought, pests, disease, and urban growth all contributed over time. But major freeze events permanently reshaped acreage. Industry today reflects survival. It reflects who decided the work was still worth it. Or in my case, if you're young enough, it's still worth it. Urban encroachment. I showed y'all that little region down in South Texas. Today, there's almost 2 million people living in that region along the border, on both sides of the border. You gotta remember, we're right on the Rio Grande River, so you got Matamoros and Reynosa. They've got 1 million folks, and we've got 1 million folks. Over time, the valley grew. Roads expanded, neighborhoods developed. Groves that once stood alone are now surrounded by homes and businesses. After freezes, some of the land was sold instead of replanted. Y'all see it around here. And once farmland turns into concrete, asphalt, and development, it ain't coming back. Today, Texas has just a little over 18,000 acres of commercial citrus still in production. Roughly 70% of that's grapefruit. Y'all saw some of it when you walked in, and some of the oranges, and I think we've got some here for you maybe. And with the remaining 30% made up of different orange varieties. In fact, an early orange named the Mars orange was a variety developed by family members of my own back in the 1930s, and we still produce that fruit today. It's that good of an orange. Just everybody likes it. It's an early orange. Texas is known worldwide, though, for its sweet, red grapefruit. Even at this size, we're still the second largest grapefruit producing state in the country, behind Florida, third in orange production behind Florida and California. So yeah, the industry's smaller, but it's still very much alive, and obviously we're still very proud of it. Even at this size, this always interests me when economists do their thing. Citrus still matters economically in Texas. Industry generates nearly $466 million annually and supports thousands of jobs. That impact reaches well beyond the groves into packing, transportation, and local businesses. So even our small footprint, we still pack a punch. We're pretty proud of that. After every freeze, growers always take an opportunity to try to improve, whether it's planting methods, irrigation methods, different varieties, you name it. We talked about the old Ruby Red, but we didn't stop with that. After that discovery, our scientists at Texas A&M Kingsville knew Texas needed citrus bred specifically for this region, not an accident. We knew we needed something that was tolerant. One of the key people was Dr. Richard Hentz. He spent years studying groves, selecting fruit, and paying attention to what worked best here. That long-term work focused on improving color, flavor, and consistency, and it led to varieties like our Rio Star. Rio Star is a true Texas grapefruit. They grow the thing in South Africa now. Yeah, exactly, competition. It was tested here and proven in our groves. It's a good example of how research and experience come together to keep this industry moving forward. But you can see how we just consistently kept getting redder and sweeter. And that's like I said, that's good and bad because then we give it to the world and then they compete against us. It is what it is. Modern citrus farming, though, is a balancing act. There's opportunity, but there's also constant risk. Growers are managing water availability, pests, weather, labor, markets, and almost always at the same time. Every decision affects the next season, not just the next harvest. But that's what farming in South Texas looks like today, staying flexible, paying attention, and adjusting constantly to keep citrus moving forward. That's the Rio Grande River, and that is our lifeline, just like that slide says. There's one thing citrus can't live without, it's water. John Sherry knew that. And for growers in South Texas, our water comes from the Rio Grande River. Every tree in the valley depends on consistent irrigation. Always has. Without reliable water, citrus doesn't survive. It's just that simple. Right now, water is one of our biggest challenges. I think it's that way everywhere. We're dealing with long-term drought, reduced river flows, ongoing shortfalls in water deliveries with Mexico under the 1944 treaty, and I hope y'all ask me about that later. When those deliveries don't show up, growers are forced to make hard decisions. Which block's going to get the water? Which ones do you trickle? Do you hold back on? Sometimes whether you keep farming at all. We've already seen what happens when water becomes unreliable. South Texas used to have a sugarcane industry. It was a major crop there. It's gone now. Not because growers didn't know how to farm it, and not because there wasn't a market, but because the water situation became too uncertain to sustain it. That's the fear. If water issues continue, citrus could face the same future. Trees can't be turned on and off like a row crop. Once a grove's lost, it's gone. Growers don't waste water. We manage it carefully because we have to. Every irrigation matters. Future of citrus in South Texas is tied directly to how well the Rio Grande is managed and how dependable that water supply is going forward. Pests and diseases. We just got all kinds of problems, don't we? It's another area where today's growers are dealing with things previous generations never imagined. Many of today's pests and diseases didn't exist here decades ago. They came in quietly, often through increased global movement. The hard part is they don't announce themselves. They spread slowly, and by the time you see them, they're already there. Protecting citrus today takes constant monitoring, science, and coordination. That's a new one. HLB. It's called Huanglong Bing. It's from China. That is the most destructive citrus disease in the world. Spread by a tiny insect, the Asian citrus psyllid, that little critter over there on the right. Once a tree is infected, it slowly declines, and there's no cure. HLB was first detected in Texas in 2012. The reason we still are here, though, is because we caught it early, we took quick action, and cooperated with each other. We kept our trees healthy, and we have a spray program. It's not a problem that ever goes away, and we're looking for a cure. But it's one thing we manage every day, but it has wiped out Florida. There's another one. It's called canker. Y'all have any friends in Houston? They're my problem. So if they're growing citrus in Houston, tell them to kill it. I'll get into that. Citrus canker is different because it's driven by storms and movement. Bacteria spread mainly through wind-driven rain. It came into the Houston area from Louisiana. During strong storms or hurricanes, rain pushes the bacteria into young leaves and fruit, especially where there are small wounds from wind or equipment. That's when it moves the fastest. Texas, the biggest concern is the A strain of citrus canker, the Asiatic strain. That's more aggressive, and it's been found in Houston, but it's the strain that attacks grapefruit and oranges. So fortunately, we don't have it yet. But one we do have is the W strain. It only likes lemons and limes, which we only grow in backyards. Everybody's got a lime tree in their backyard. Everybody's got a margarita machine in their backyard. So that's what it does like. But that's a problem for me. If the A strain comes in from Houston, we're cooked. That's an oldie but a goodie. We've had that for decades, fruit flies. Again, you gotta remember, I'm right on the Mexican border. Everything's coming across. That wall don't stop that, I can promise you. When detections occur, quarantines go into place. Those quarantines are pretty serious. They restrict how fruit can move, where it can be shipped, and sometimes whether it can be shipped at all. That slows down harvest, obviously increases costs, and puts added pressures on growers who are already managing tight margins. Quarantines also mean extra inspections, additional treatments, more paperwork, all of which cost time and money. But they're necessary because the goal is to protect other citrus growing regions and the national food supply. What makes Texas different is how we manage it. Through coordinated state and federal programs, constant monitoring, and rapid response, Texas has become a national leader in controlling Mexican fruit fly. It's not easy, it's not cheap, but it works, and it's a big reason Texas can keep moving fruit to market. Cooperation's the key, though, for us folks with all these pest and disease issues. Growers can't do it on their own. Researchers, state agencies, federal partners, they're all involved. And that coordination happens year-round, not just when there's a problem. Everyone's watching, monitoring, sharing information, because when something shows up, time matters. The faster we know, the faster we can respond. That level of cooperation, I believe, is why Texas has been able to manage challenges better than most. Can't stop a freeze, but there are things we can do. It's not perfect, but it works. But it only works because people are willing to work together. We're going to skip around just a little bit here.
What is that gentleman doing there?
He is tapping there. What he's doing is tapping and seeing what bugs fall on his plate there. In that case, he's looking for psyllids for greening. We're going to skip because we've got a video that won't work, but we're going to play it for you at the very end. I just thought this would be kind of cool for y'all. Just some odds and ends about oddities in Texas citrus. We already told you that it's all grown in one little small subtropical region down in the lower Rio Grande Valley. But how many of you knew in 1996, Texas grapefruit was actually named the state fruit of Texas? Y'all saw the pictures there with the governors, and that's what they were doing. So yeah, grapefruit's your state fruit of Texas. You're welcome. It's naturally rich in vitamin C, antioxidants, fiber, and lycopene. Grapefruit lycopene content increases as the fruit ripens on the tree. So the darker the color, the more lycopene. Yeah, 1996. We slipped that in there in the legislature. You're welcome. So Texas, and we're a fresh fruit industry. Florida's predominantly juice. They can do some mechanical harvesting on juice fruit. All ours is still hand-picked. We haven't perfected any other way to pick fresh fruit but by hand. I see the looks. Surprises a lot of people. And yeah, it's hard work. Oh yeah, oh yeah. No machine shaking trees like you see in other crops. Every piece of fruit's picked by hand. Crews move through the rows with bags over their shoulders, on ladders, selecting fruit based on size, color, and maturity. And they're not just going in there and grabbing a fruit. They're choosing the fruit. There's skill in that process, and we respect that. Experienced harvest crews know what a mature fruit looks like just by sight and feel. What did I do to y'all a while ago? I went and picked another fruit for you to cut open. Just, you know what to look for. Now it's game on. Once that fruit's picked, clock starts ticking. Moves quickly to the packing house. You see the difference now, some of the old slides and how more bins and fewer hands out there in the sheds just on some of these slides versus the labor back in the 30s and whatnot. Moves quickly to the packing house where it's washed, sanitized, and inspected. Every piece of fruit's graded by USDA for size, color, and external quality. The goal is consistency. When a customer buys Texas grapefruit, they expect it to look and taste right. I hope you do. Fruit that doesn't meet fresh market standards is probably going to go to the juice plant, but we don't waste anything. See those bags on those trees? That's how we're doing some new trees, mesh protective covers. That little Asian citrus psyllid can't get in there. So we put those bags on those trees now to at least give them about a 2-year start. They're gonna get it eventually, but we'd like to get them healthy while they're kicking off. So we started using those bags. Yeah, once they start, we say we leave them on for 2 years, but the reality is we take them off when the tree's outgrowing the bag. Just common sense. Research doesn't replace experience, it supports it. Growers still rely on what they've learned in the field over decades, but research does help us fine-tune those decisions. Things like new varieties, better irrigation methods, improved nutrition programs don't happen by accident. Much of that work for us is led by Texas A&M Kingsville. Researchers spend years testing what works best under South Texas conditions. They're not guessing. They're measuring, observing, and learning right alongside growers. That kind of innovation helps us adapt to changing weather, water availability, and disease pressures. It doesn't eliminate risk, but it gives growers better tools to survive long-term and keep our industry moving forward. I think we're an industry worth protecting. It's a heritage worth protecting, and we're fighting what we can to do that. This industry exists because families were willing to invest across generations. Challenges have always been part of citrus. Freezes, drought, pest, disease, change have tested this industry again and again. But growers didn't quit. They've adapted, they learned, and they kept going. That pride and resilience is also why traditions like Citrus Fiesta still exist today. What started decades ago as a way to celebrate the harvest and promote Texas grapefruit is now a reminder of the community behind this industry. It's not just about fruit, it's about people, families, and shared history. The story of Texas citrus isn't finished. It's still being written by people working the groves today and by the next generations coming behind them. We're going to play a little video now of how we do things today, if you don't mind.
The drone video you are about to see is an overhead view of 2 adjacent citrus orchards in South Texas. The 2 orchards on the same property are divided by a dirt road. They were both planted at the same time 3 years ago, and both orchards received the same grower inputs. So Why is one orchard so obviously healthier and more lush than the other? There's only one difference between the two: the manner in which the two orchards were planted. In 2013, two scientists at the Texas A&M University System Citrus Research Facilities, Dr. Mamadou Setamu and Dr. Olufemi Alabi, were looking for a non-chemical effective method to physically block the circular foliage to underground life cycle of Diaprepes root weevils that were attacking the tree's root systems and killing trees. The solution they came up with involved covering the root zone area of trees with a black plastic mesh. The mesh proved to be highly successful. Damage from the Diaprepes root weevil was virtually eliminated. But by using this ground cover, especially over raised earthen beds, their research over the years produced an impressive list of significant benefits for growers, a list that continues to grow as their research continues. By using this new planting method, growers can expect vastly improved tree growth, root health, earlier fruit set, higher quality fruit, substantial water savings, superior tree health to help manage greening, Phytophthora and other pests and diseases, weed and vine control, the elimination of root weevils, and more. The use of this new planting method will likely become the only profitable way to plant future citrus orchards, and it may even help rescue the world's struggling citrus industry from total collapse. Like other citrus producing regions of the world, South Texas is facing perilous challenges, but local citrus experts say the raised bed planting system offers tremendous hope.
We started in 2020 with a hurricane. 2021 we had to freeze, drought, periods of inability to get water from Mexico, our trading partner. Just a combination of the perfect storm befell us, not to mention the pest and disease issues.
Murden recommends Florida citrus producers contact Texas A&M scientists in Weslaco, Texas for the latest information on how to incorporate this new raised bed planting method. He says it's a matter of survival.
I've had the luxury of being in Florida a couple of times where they've taken some of what Dr. Setamu and others here developed over there with great excitement. For the first time, I'm seeing some excitement in Florida. And it's been, as you well know, very, very bad over there since they found greening. Industry's in real horrible decline, but I think, and I've told them this, I think for the first time I see some hope. Some of these new planting designs I think are really going to help them. That's how we're surviving greening right now. Tree health, more than any one thing I can put my finger on. We took a page out of Florida's playbook when we discovered it here, and Dr. Setamu and others helped us realize, you better keep that tree healthy, keep the psyllid populations as low as you can while we look for eventual cure.
Above and beyond the encouraging and extensive research data developed by Drs. Setamu and Alabi, the new planting method now has positive testimonials from commercial citrus producers who have now been using the system for years. One grower, Judd Flowers of Lone Star Citrus Growers of Mission, Texas, said the first benefit of using this new system became apparent just weeks after planting.
After about 4 or 5 months, the beds that had cover on them started to decline. And we discovered that because the bed cover conserved the water so much, the water that it took to keep the regular trees in production was too much water for the ones that had cover on. So we had to install a valve to reduce the water input on those by about 30%. So it pays off, especially nowadays when we're in stress from drought and lack of water supply.
Glenn Martin, the Grove Care Manager at Lone Star Citrus, said it all comes down to tree health.
These trees are not that old. They're going into their 4th season. They were planted May 21st of 2021, right after the freeze. You can actually see how much growth, how much size, and how we can control these trees. because we want the most production we can get at all times. The savings in water, pressurized irrigation versus flood irrigation. Flood irrigation in drought times, like what we have right now, is not the way to go. For the future, density, moisture control, control your fertilizer, you control your herbicides. Get away from chemicals as much as possible. We're not treating any chemicals underneath those trees. All that root system is drawing in that 6-foot bed down deep, and there's no intrusion of herbicides or chemicals. So your tree health, your root health, this is what we strive for.
Jose Silva, the manager of Edinburgh Citrus Grove Care in Edinburgh, Texas, swears by this new planting system and highly recommends it to others.
You know, I've been in agriculture for, I don't know, all my life. The raised bed and the row cover is the future for citrus down here.
Earl Newhouse, a farm implement dealership owner and longtime citrus grower, is such an advocate of the raised bed planting system that he devised a tractor-pulled implement to create raised bed orchards.
Need to have your soil in excellent shape. Have good loose topsoil where it's loose so the machine can actually grab some dirt and not be scarifying off hard ground. So once we get it chiseled up deep, then we come in and farm the bed. Then we come in with another machine that we built that takes this 10-foot roll of plastic. It digs a trench on the side, it buries the plastic and puts dirt over it in one pass. Then you're pretty much ready to hook your lines up and test out your irrigation system.
For Judd Flowers, it's all about the bottom line.
The primary advantages are economic. You know, the growing costs are less. It's a matter of increasing the investment on the front end, getting into production sooner, and having lower cost over the life of the orchard. We call it a pay me now or pay me later situation. It has advantages in reduced cost after establishment and early production, which is, you know, the sooner you can get to payday, the better off you are.
For details, advice, and the latest research findings on the raised bed planting system, contact the Texas A&M University Kingsville Citrus Center at Weslaco, Texas, or contact the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service, also in Weslaco. Also available are the entire unedited videos of those interviewed for this production.
I apologize to y'all. I'm not much of a public speaker. When they asked me to do this about a year ago, I thought, well, that's an odd request. Go to a museum in Beaumont, Texas, and talk about citrus. But I said, sure, we'll drive to Beaumont and do that. I want y'all to know I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Now I'm going to ask for a show of hands. How many of you now know that you have a commercial citrus industry in Texas? There you go. That was my goal. Full show of hands. Folks, I'll stick around as long as you want for questions. Anything you want to ask, I'll do my dead level best to answer it, or I'll let Mr. Talley do it.
If you'll just raise your hand and I'll bring the mic.
You made the statement, kill your tree if you live in Houston, your citrus. What about here in Beaumont? I need to kill my trees?
No, you know, it was because of the Department of Agriculture that I'm here tonight.
Yeah.
Somehow the department, y'all called the department and were looking for different speakers or something, and they said, well, call this guy. And between the Department of Agriculture, USDA, and a lot of cooperative effort in the Houston area, we've contained it up here. The problem is, it's like I said, it's wind-driven. People, how y'all got it was somebody threw it in the trunk of a car, brought it over here. Well, it's all these hurricanes spread like wildfire, and it's frustrating. But you know, no, we don't begrudge anybody having a citrus tree. It's tough on the commercial industry survival to try to keep it contained. But with education, y'all get it.
Yeah. I know that few years ago, we had a man, Stanley Price, in China, Texas, and he had a pretty good little citrus grove there. Texas A&M was at his place all the time, checking his trees.
Yeah. That's the only way we're gonna contain things like this. I got it coming from both ways. You know, we got Mexico, and the wind's always blowing, and they're always bringing product across. You folks are getting 90% of your fruits and vegetables from Mexico and South America now. Well, that all comes up the fruit fly problem. There's 80 different hosts for a fruit fly, and a lot of it's in your kitchen right now, probably. It is what it is. So we're just fighting the fight, and things have changed over the decades. What Mr. Sherry had to deal with, I didn't have to deal with. What I'm dealing with, Mr. Sherry never even heard of. So it's just survival. No, keep growing your tree. Like I said, everybody in the valley's got a margarita machine in their backyard, lime tree. We ain't stopping that.
You said to ask about the Water Act of 1940.
You really want to know about that?
I want to know about that one, and also I want to know how is it affecting with the Water Rights Act when you have water rights, and how does that helps with you owning citrus and utilizing it for the surface and also water underneath to help out because it is a tapping plant.
Yeah, great questions. 3 different things. We're going to pick it apart there. We're going to start with the water rights. Down where I'm from, the water rights issues were settled decades ago. We know exactly who owns those rights and where they belong and how we get the water. I don't know about up here, but in South Texas, we know how it's dealt with. I would expect it's probably that way everywhere, but maybe there's fights to come I haven't heard about. But water rights, we use irrigation districts. We've got 23 different water districts down there. You can argue that the landowner owns the right, but it really is held at the water district level. I have the right to water. I don't own that right, but I do have that right to water. I pay taxes, and so we have that right to water. The 1944 treaty, there was actually 2 treaties done in 1944, the Colorado River and the Rio Grande River. On the Colorado River, the United States is obligated to give Mexico 1.5 million acre feet annually. Flows that way. Excuse me. On the Rio Grande, Mexico is obligated to give us 350,000 acre feet annually. Colorado side, the U.S. side, without fail, we've never failed to give them what they had coming. If we were short, we made up for it with what? Money, without fail. For the last 40 years, Mexico has habitually held our water back down there. Matter of fact, when the treaty was done in 44, there were 3 dams in Mexico. There are now 11. So, do I blame them? Well, not really. I just want them to uphold the treaty agreement and pay us what they owe us. And so that's been a battle pretty much now my whole life. Now drought compounds the problem. So it's a double sword for me. What was the third thing we were going to pick apart there? Oh, the taproot, water. Yeah, we use water. We use about 40 inches annually, and that's on drip irrigation. So we're really actually conserving water with drip. If we were flood irrigating, like you saw in that video, while we're trying to get away from that, is we would use about 70 inches of water flood. Now we're down to, 30 or 40. So we've found ways to conserve. Like the gentleman said, that row cover really helps hold that water. Great questions. Did I answer it?
Yes, the last thing is, have you contacted the Corps of Engineers to help out with the water if you're close enough to that body of water to help you out with?
So we do work with the Corps on infrastructure improvements and whatnot. We've got 2 international reservoirs. Y'all ever heard of Falcon Lake and Amistad Lake? Those are the 2 international lakes on the Rio Grande River where we hold water. And we work with the Corps all the time on projects. We do, yeah. Good question.
What's the average output of a grapefruit tree, and about how long does it produce?
Well, before they made me a liar, the old days, it took me at least 5 years to get into production. You saw Judd's trees there. We've come a long way. 4th year, and he had arguably at least 15 tons to the acre production already in the 4th year. So that's a big improvement over the old days. Honestly, without freezes, we've got some trees down in the valley that are still there from the 1950s. They have come back from every freeze, and those things will produce 25, 30 tons to the acre. For us, it's about what we can put in a box and not send to the juice plant. So we try to keep, you know, a good grower's gonna get 80% fresh and 20% juice. If you're having a bad year, you're putting 60% in the box and 40% is going to the juice. As growers, we don't make anything on juice fruit. We just don't. It behooves us to put it in the box and get it on the shelf for y'all to eat. Did I answer that? Sometimes I start rambling. I don't even know if I answered the question or not.
I lived in Florida for several decades.
I'm sorry.
Well, I'm back here in Texas now. And I had friends that owned citrus groves. And of course, they went through so many of the problems that Florida citrus groves encountered. And they converted their production to blueberries. Has there been any type of conversion to other types of fruit?
You
down
see
in
what
the
happened to
valley?
their blueberry crop last week?
Pardon?
Did you see what happened to their blueberry crop last week?
I didn't.
Man, it got killed.
Yeah,
I mean, completely hammered. And there's some friends of mine,
yeah,
personal friends of mine over there. I was teasing you about Florida.
yeah.
Cindy's brother still lives over there. Matter of fact, I told you all about the sugar mill closing. My brother-in-law, Cindy's sister's husband, ran our sugar mill, and he's had to relocate to Florida to run a sugar mill over there. So that's just part of the reality in my world. Have we looked at other crops? We always look at other crops. We grow grapes down in the valley. We've done blackberries. Years ago, in the 50s, strawberries were a huge crop in the valley. So it's been cyclical. Markets, water, trends, other countries growing what they beat you over the head with. We talked about shelf space, limited, limited, limited. How many of y'all heard of the golden kiwi? Man, that thing's good, isn't it? But, I mean, they're bringing in new stuff all the time, competing with what we grow. And, you know, you got to pick your poison. We've been doing citrus for 130 years, and some of us are just stupidly hard-headed.
We have time for one or two more questions.
Oh, come on.
When is the best time of the year to fertilize your crops?
That's a great question. I used to tell you I did it in the spring. That drip irrigation now, we're spoon feeding fertilizer year round, tree health, because of that HLB greening. But in the old days, it was spring fertilizer, water. We used to go dormant. And so in the fall, we just harvest, but we weren't doing much because we wanted the tree to go dormant for the freeze. We don't do that anymore. We grow year round. There's no such thing as dormant. So we spoon feed those things all the time. You saw how green those trees were. We have to. Greening will kill them. We just haven't found a cure for that yet. So the best defense is tree health. Keep those roots healthy. Keep those leaves healthy.
I'm sorry, what is greening?
HLB, Huang Long Bing. Sorry, yeah, I didn't say greening when I did is HLB, Huang Long Bing, we call it greening. Came from China, and it has just mutilated Florida.
Is that what shrivels up the leaves?
It can, it causes some yellow veins, it'll misshape the fruit. It's just downhill. That tree's gonna eventually just be nothing. You got hands going up all over the place.
With the labor situation, the hand picking, with the border situation today, what's your labor situation like now?
Scares the fool out of me. Getting tougher and tougher and tougher. We use a lot of H-2A workers now. We try to. For decades, we were blessed being on the border. Work, they wanted the work. They'd go home at night. Life was great. Don't have that anymore. Labor's getting hard to find. And we're all fighting each other for the same labor pool. So mechanization for me is obviously where we've got to get. For us, they haven't been able to, for us anyway, it's fresh fruit. I want a certain size, I want a certain quality, a certain grade. If I was just ripping the fruit off the tree, we'd have already been doing it. But it's just not that simple. I need Elon Musk or somebody like that to adopt us, to just say, well, here's the technology, because we ain't found it yet. They are. Yeah, they are. They are. It'll happen, and we have to have it. We absolutely have to have it. sadly. I don't like putting people out of work, but it is what it is.
What extent do you use herbicides and pesticides?
Little as we can. You saw those raised beds? We're doing grass in the middle now. So we'll just mow the middle. We don't like spraying any more than we have to. It costs money. Yes, sir.
Y'all operate like the Texan Citrus Mutual, is that like a co-op?
That's actually the growers' organization. We'll do things for them in Austin or DC if we need to, and I fell into that by default. I'm a grower first, last, foremost, and always. Several years ago, the industry, we're getting smaller, and so we look to each other to help each other out, and I drew the short straw that day.
What about pollination? Do you have a bee issue, or is it?
As far as I'm concerned, when bees are in my grove and I get accused of killing them, they're trespassing, because I don't use bees to pollinate. And I love honey. So we like bees in the grove because citrus honey is the best honey you'll ever have. But really, we don't use, I've been accused of killing bees. I'm a little sensitive about it because we don't use them to pollinate, so why were they there?
With this new planting technique, does that apply to all citrus trees?
If you're going to stay in business, that's probably what you want to do. And it's not cheap, but that's the way to survive. It really is. You're looking at probably now $8,000–9,000 an acre to get a grove going, just to plant.
Let's give a warm round of applause.
Thank y'all very much. Enjoyed it. I'll stick around.